Hi, this is Wes Simpson with another edition of the Summer Sessions on Media over IP, brought to you by Ames and the VSF. With me today is Ievgen Kostiukevych, who is the Senior IP Media Technology Architect from the European Broadcasting Union. And he's going to be talking about the JTNM Tested program. Welcome, Ievgen.
Glad to be here, Wes. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I hope things are going well in Geneva, and I hope that everything's working for you.
Yeah, it used to be sunny today, not so much at the moment, but yeah, I would love the weather like you have at the back now, Wes. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So let's get to your presentation.
So, welcome everyone. Thank you very much once again for having me talking once again about the JTNM tested event. This time it's going to be the March 2020, or sometimes we call it a Spring 2020 rendition iteration of the event. We're going to talk a little bit what exactly, once again, the JTNM tested is, what have we been testing, how is it different from what we've been testing before, how did we do that, the task planning tools, how did we, obviously we cannot miss the global situation. We have to answer the question, how did we react to the pandemic, and what are the actual results that we were able to produce no matter what the situation is. So once again, JTNM tries to offer, by doing this tested event, a more documented insights into how the actual products from various vendors, the products can be a software or a hardware piece of equipment, aligned to the core media for IP standards like SMPTE 2110 and SMPTE 2059, and of course some additional specifications and technical recommendations from JTNM and AMWA covering the control plane. We've been doing control plane for the third time now. We've introduced the testing of the NMOS specifications in the second edition of the JTNM tested, but this time we've expanded it even more to cover the NMOS registries and NMOS broadcast controllers. We're producing a large number of the supporting documents. We'll talk about that, and I must remind you once again that this is not a certification program. It's a snapshot in time into how actually the vendor equipment conforms with the given software version, with the given hardware version. So if you hear marketing people talking about we've been certified by JTNM, take it with a pinch of salt, because that's not what we've been doing. So this time we've been doing 4 types of tests. So 4 major pillars of the program are the data plane, so the basic and a little bit more advanced ST2110 behavior of the end nodes, the control plane behavior, including the NMOS specifications and the JTNM TR1001-1. This time with NMOS registries, so that is considered to be part of the control plane. But we also included another pillar, which is the NMOS broadcast controllers, that was done by the team at CBC Radio and Radio Canada. And of course, we cannot miss, once again, the cybersecurity vulnerability assessment. This is a major part of the program. It used to be from the beginning, and it continues to be that. So regarding the documents that we produced, most of them are made available to the public one way or another. The main documents of the program are the test plan, and this time we once again have the ST2110 test plan, the NMOS NTR1001-1 test plan, and also the cybersecurity test plan. We didn't have that for the previous iteration of the event. We've been using the EBU R148 recommendation for the cybersecurity testing. This time we've adapted this recommendation. It's still based on the same R148, but we've covered it with some additional details and guidelines for the self-testing. We'll touch on that on the self-testing later, but this is now the official documents. Of course, some tools. Some tools that we've been using since the beginning of the program are the EBU Live IP Software Toolkit and the AMWA NMOS testing tools. The cool thing about these tools, they are free, both like free beer and free speech. They're free to use, but also open source, so you can actually go ahead and have a look how how the actual tests are performed, and to support the vendors in their self-testing stage of the event. We've also produced a number of guidelines on how to perform the test, how to do the proper capturing, how to use the tools. We've been doing some additional PTP testing, so that's also covered by yet another recommendation document. So here on this slide, that's actually will be obsolete in a couple of weeks because the EBU pyramid, the tag 3371, is currently undergoing a revision. Also, following the feedback from the GTM test, that we will be revising the layers and the color coding of the pyramid. I'm happy to say that the pyramid will be greener than before. So for those who were concerned about the lack of green color in this one, you'll be happy to see the new drawing. Here, I'm just trying to show you how the test plans and how the areas of testing are mapped to the actual layers of the pyramid, with the 2110 test plan covering media transport and timing and synchronization, the NMOS NTR 1001 test plan covering the discovery and registration and going into the configuration and monitoring, and of course, cybersecurity being the basis of the pyramid from the beginning. It's still an integral part of the program, and without that, you cannot really be sure in any kind of IP installation. So a little bit of a fun statistics. We had 34 vendors this time who ended up publishing their results in the catalogs. Among them, 59 products were tested for 2110 test plan, and 44 products tested for the NMOS NTR 1001-1 test plan, including 4 NMOS registries and 6 broadcast controllers. So the program since the second iteration of the program, we have 2 stages of the testing. So previously, we called it the pre-testing. This time, we went ahead and called it self-testing. The reason for doing this is because no matter of the situation in the world, and of course now with the ever-changing pandemic situation, we don't know yet what's going to be the new normal. But even before that, we had considerations, and we recognized that the global interoperability events are being a massive burden to all the parties involved. The monetary burden, the logistical burden, the human burden. We have a lot of experts in the field working together to make this happen, and this takes time. This takes enormous effort to coordinate. So we started to make more and more of emphasis on the pre-testing work, the self-testing that vendors can and should be doing on their own, even before coming to the face-to-face event, so they know in advance what to expect. They run the test on their own through the whole test plan. They go through the whole test plan and run every single test, and they submit the results to us. And then the face-to-face event, which is the second stage, acts as a validation of those results. So we make sure that the vendor understood correctly the test plans, that the results are repeatable in a more controlled environment of the face-to-face event. And we validated them, and we actually were supposed to publish the self-testing results as they are, but validated in a face-to-face manner. This how it would look like. So that's actually a picture of a previous event that we had at Wuppertal, at the facility of Real Communications. Unfortunately, the universe decided the other way around, and we had to cancel the event. Even before the global lockdown, before the borders were closed, we understood that we have to put the health and safety of the all the participants, the testing teams, and also the staff of the hosting facility, which was supposed to be in Houston, Texas. We were supposed to be hosted by Disney facility in Houston. We couldn't put them at risk. We couldn't put the testing teams and the experts, and we couldn't really put down the whole media over IP industry by making everyone potentially putting them in danger of being exposed to the virus. So in light of this cancellation, we had to act fast and pivot the program to make use as much as possible of what was done before that in a preparation stage. a lot of effort was already put into the program by the testing teams and by the vendors. At that point in time, we've already started receiving some self-testing results, and we try to do our best to provide as much value as possible given the circumstances to the industry. So we've decided to introduce two new badges. The SEMTI ST2110 self-tested and the NMOS TR1001-1 self-tested. It actually kind of officially behind the scenes reads self-tested according to the GTNM test plan, either ST2110 or NMOS and TR1001-1 test plans. This basically indicates that the results are mainly based on the self-testing reports that were submitted to us. One exception is the NMOS broadcast controllers. We were able to, thanks to the team at CBC Radio Canada, they were able to work out a solution to test the broadcast controllers using the Cloud VPN solution. They were actually able to connect the broadcast controllers from the vendors' labs into their own lab and test them. So the output of the program, just like it was before that, two iterations before that, are the two results catalogs, the ST2110 and the NMOS and GTN MTR1001-1, including media nodes, registries, and controllers results catalogs. So those two are published at the moment on the GTN website. I encourage you to go ahead and download those. Let's go a little bit into what was tested in every pillar, starting with ST2110. We went ahead and we mapped the tests to the main sections of the 2110 suite, starting from the basic networking configurability and behavior, also PTP, and this time with advanced configurability and the failovers. So we've been testing the Grandmaster failovers this time, going into the -10 with the timestamping and SDP testing, going into -20, including the visual validation, and -21, including the buffer models, -30 with audible validation, and this time we've introduced -31 with audible validation, -40, of course, for the ancillary data, and the multi-stream redundancy with 2022-7. And of course, everything was repeated for the UHD testing, for the UHD formats, I'm sorry. The results, when you download, not if, but when, don't delay, download today. When you download the catalogs, at the end, you will see the annex with the results metrics. And this is the same results metrics, of course, with newer results, but the approach is the same as in the previous catalogs. You have tests on top, directly mapped with the numbers according to the test plan. And you have devices, make and model, and the software and hardware version, and also the capability of the device. So is it a video device? Is it a video and audio or audio only device? You have it on the left, and there you will have a color-coded results with the traditional green being pass, gray being not pass, and white being not applicable. Going further into the control plane, the task plan and the results for the NMOS and TR1001-1. This time we've broadened the program, as I said, to include the registries and the broadcast controllers, but we've also covered things like traditional ISO 4, ISO 5, ISO 8, to become the system resource specification that will become ISO 9, but also networking and IT technologies like DHCP and LDP. Again, just go and read the whole thing. It's incredibly elaborate. Every test plan is incredibly detailed and verbose. The result matrix is pretty much the same. We had the tests on top, the devices on the left, and the color coding in the center. The new addition to the program being the NMOS broadcast controllers. It's a new category. We had very limited time preparing this. Thank you very much once again to the team at CBC for coming up with this test plan. It's their contribution to the program, and they were governing this testing. As I told you, it was done fully remotely via VPN and video conferencing. Not a lot of devices, I have to admit, but even then, it's a great achievement in my opinion. The results of the broadcast controllers, they are placed in the same catalog. We decided not to create a separate test plan and a separate catalog simply because it still lays in the domain of the control plane. So when you download the, again, not if, but when you download this catalog, you will get the broadcast controllers there for free. Of course, cybersecurity. We cannot miss that. As I keep repeating, it's an integral part of the program. It's an integral part of the every single installation to be considered. It's the cybersecurity. We've just as with the other pillars of the program, the self-testing, self-scanning, and the questionnaires were introduced for the self-testing stage. And then, of course, it would have been the on-site vulnerability scan by the cybersecurity team on site. Unfortunately, didn't happen. We had relatively good success testing some of the events, some of the devices. I'm sorry, some of the products over the VPN, but some results are still kind of to be improved, to be desired. Of course, we must keep the security on the agenda for every iteration of the program. This will remain part of the testing, and this is not an optional part. This is a mandatory part. We'll keep looking for ways to provide the vendors with the reliable tools for the easier self-testing, to have more predictable results and less ambiguous results. And of course, the work on the follow-up of the issues has to continue. It's one thing to identify the vulnerability. It's a much more important thing to work on the mitigation of that vulnerability. So let's talk a little bit about the conclusions. We can safely say that the results are much better than the previous time. Every single time we do this, we repeat the program, we see the improvements. So while unfortunately we were not able to fully validate and verify the results, that level of verification that was put into the results showed the clear improvement, and we will have to work further to make these kind of events more, adapt them a bit more for things like remote testing and testing over the VPN. And of course, the nature of the 2110 actually does not allow us to easily pipe the 2110 stream over the public internet or even over VPN. But with the introduction of more and more automated tools, we hope that the objective testing is possible. We continue to deliver value to the industry by improving the implementations, giving the customers and the potential buyers not only the results, but also the tools and the guidelines to use on their own, for example, for the RFPs and for the tendering processes. So you just take the test plan and you show it to your potential vendor and you say, hey, can you please execute this against your device and show us the results? And based on that, that can become your part of your QA process, including the continuous testing, because we know that regression testing has to be put in place. We can never be sure that the new version of the firmware will not break something else in the implementation. And every single time you update the device, we keep repeating that you have to test it, and you have to continue being aware of what's going on in your system, how the actual devices are performing. We don't know yet whether it's going to be another round of the tested event in 2020. We don't know yet. So as part of the process, the GTNM actually established a new body inside of it. They call it the GTNM tested board. The tested board consists of the test leaders. It's completely vendor neutral. It governs the future plans for the GTNM tested events. and any kind of interoperability events under the GTNM umbrella. And we've already started working on our future plans for 2021. We don't know yet, again, when and how the world will stabilize after the pandemic. So we don't know whether we're gonna have a shot on the global event anytime soon. But we will try to make more and more accent on the scenario-based testing and also include other parts of the infrastructure, not only the end nodes. We heard the feedback that the network, while it's considered to be performing according to the expectations, it's not always the case. Network is a special kind of it's a very special piece of infrastructure. It's incredibly hard to test it objectively, but we're looking into that, and we will have a look into other building blocks of the infrastructure, just like PTP, for example. Of course, this would not be possible without without an effort from multiple parties involved. We would especially would like to recognize certain individuals and organizations. We want to thank Mr. Thomas Edwards and Walt Disney Television, Mr. Brad Gilmer from the Advanced Media Workflow Association and the Advanced Media Workflow Association, Mr. Jack Douglas and Packet Storm, Sony, and personally Mr. Garrett Sylvester Bradley, Real Communications, Real Montreal, Arista Networks, and personally Mr. Robert Welsh, all the members of the GTNM experts group and the testing teams, including Mr. Willem Vermoost, Mr. Pedro Ferreira, colleagues from IRT, colleagues from BBC R&D, Mr. Andrew Bonney, colleagues from CBC and Radio Canada, Mr. Felix Poulin, Mr. Sandy Nyambeno, and of course, cybersecurity team. So Mr. Gibbon-Dierik from VRT and Brett Gilmer once again. He helped a lot with cybersecurity, and of course the participants. This event and this program is not possible without a goodwill from the participants, from the industry, to be open to this kind of public testing and public results publishing. So thank you very much, everyone who participated. Thank you very much, everyone who supported this. I apologize if this list is not complete. Obviously, there are so many beautiful individuals contributing to this that the list can never be completed. So once again, thank you very much on behalf of the GTNM Tested Board. And please, please, please go ahead and download your copies of the catalogs. Make yourself familiar with that. Include them in your testing procedures, in your RFPs and the RFQs. Consider the products that were tested. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ievgen. That was really good. It really sounds like that adage of "it takes a village" is true. I mean, this is a huge number of people spending an enormous amount of time to make all these things happen. A lot of credit goes to you guys.
I have to say the spirit of collaboration during our face-to-face events and the team spirit and the team effort that is being put into this is incredible. The feeling and the collaborative spirit when you're just there and everyone is working towards the success of everyone else it's really extraordinary.
Well, that's great. I did have a question about the self-tested results. I mean, I know that's a new thing for this year, and I'm sure some of the folks in our audience are maybe hearing about it for the first time. But how much do you think that end users can rely on the quality of the self-testing? Is it something that you've gotten good feedback about, or where do we stand with that?
That's a very good question, Wes. Thank you very much for raising this. Of course, the previous events, that's the whole reason of introducing the new badges is to make this differentiation where during the previous events we were able to manually validate every single result. Of course, this time a huge level of trust has to be in place between the vendors and the users community to trust those results. We believe that there is a goodwill from the vendors for being to be open in this, but of course, things happen. Some miscommunications, some intentionally or unintentionally
Yeah.
tampering with the results can happen. Therefore, the GTM is currently looking into establishing some kind of a feedback loop for the end users to be able to feedback into the GTM if they see some inconsistency between the announced results and the performance of the particular product in their facilities. Of course, we understand that everyone's mileage will vary because there are so many variables in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the PTP and different network vendors, different optics, different cable, different humidity in the God knows, maybe stars didn't align.
Sure.
So there is a lot of arcane stuff going on in the IT
Mm-hmm.
industry. We know that. So we want to enable the users to express their findings, and by doing that, grow the confidence even further.
Yeah, expanding the knowledge base. That sounds like a great thing.
Yeah. Hopefully also we will be supported by the standardization bodies to do this as objectively as possible. So we're waiting with a lot of we have a lot of anticipation. Exactly. Thanks. Sorry, non-native speakers here. For the ST2110 picks, of course, it's been rumored around in the couloir talks that it will happen at some point. We're waiting for it, and hopefully
the
this
infamous
will.
PICS document. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll be interesting. Okay. One other thing, I know that the first time that the cybersecurity tests were run, maybe what was it, year and a half ago? Well, almost 2 years now. There were some pretty questionable results, if I recall correctly. There was some very rudimentary things that people weren't able to pass. Like unprotected passwords or user admin, as passwords and things like that. Have you seen improvement in that area? Have you seen any, have you seen some positive trends in the industry to make cybersecurity a much more important, part of their process?
So first of all, I must say I didn't mention this during the actual presentation, but there is a longer version of this presentation available on the tech.tbu.ch. We had an hour-long webinar where we had the actual teams, the actual 2110, NMOS, and cybersecurity, and the NMOS controllers teams talking about the detailed statistics. And there, during that presentation, Gerben actually goes into very detailed statistics of what was found. How did they discuss this with vendors, what kind of follow-up they do. In a nutshell, we can feel that the cybersecurity is definitely, the situation is improving. It can never be perfect because, as our test lead Gerben says, you can never say the device is secure. You can only understand the level of insecurity of the device. You can understand that for that particular vulnerability, this device is not affected, but tomorrow may be a new vulnerability discovered. So this is a continuous process. That's why, once again, this is a snapshot in time. We're not saying the device is secure. We're just saying that this kind of issues we've seen, this device performed like this. And definitely vendors and the community sees the importance of this testing and the cybersecurity in particular. And they start asking questions to the vendors. Hey, can you please introduce the password protection on your management web interface?
Yeah.
And we see positive movements in that side. A lot of vendors who were asked these questions, they actually introduced this functionality. So that's very good.
Well, great. I'm glad to hear that as an industry we're taking this security aspect to be much more important than I think. And having been an engineer, designing things in the past, security was always a nuisance sometimes when you were developing product. But man, it's the most important thing when it comes time to release stuff. So Ievgen, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure we want people to take a look at the website and make sure that they download this material. It's very valuable. It's complete. You see what was tested. You see what the test results were. Yes, they were self-reported, but we all know that cheaters never prosper, right? You know, you need to take these results and use them. And if you have feedback, as Ievgen said, we're looking for, they're looking for some feedback. So on behalf of the AIMS organization and the VSF and all of our other sponsors, thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So glad you could attend. I hope the sun comes back out in Geneva sometime in the near future. I hope you've been getting some good weather out there.
It's been good so far. Yeah, we've been doing some hiking.
Oh, that's good. Lots of good places to go hiking around there. And
Indeed.
And a good thing to do during a pandemic.
Yeah, isolation through just getting out, out there. Yeah.